The scene opens in the heart of a modern-day newsroom, a place where the hum of computers and the rustle of paper clash with the weight of untold stories. Clara Reeves, a journalist with a sharp mind and a restless spirit, sits at her desk, surrounded by the debris of half-finished articles and coffee-stained notes. The glow of her monitor casts a pale light on her face as she scrolls through digitized archives, her fingers pausing over a faded headline. Captain Voss vanishes, mystery in the skies. The grainy photograph beside it shows a man standing beside his plane, his expression unreadable, but his eyes strangely arresting, as if he's staring right through time. Her colleague Mark leans over her shoulder with a smirk, his voice dripping with condescension. Ghost planes now? I thought you were above this kind of thing. Clara doesn't flinch. She's used to the skepticism, the way people dismiss anything that doesn't fit neatly into the world as they understand it. But something about this story, about him, pulls at her. Maybe it's the way the accounts of his disappearance don't add up, or the way eyewitnesses, scattered across decades, all describe the same thing, a silver plane cutting through the clouds, untouched by time. When she takes the story to her editor, Harris, his reaction is predictable. He scoffs, rubbing his temples like she's given him a migraine. No one cares about a missing pilot from the 40s, he grumbles. But Clara knows better. She knows that people do care, about mysteries, about legends, about the things that linger just beyond explanation. And so, against Harris's dismissal, she keeps digging. That's how she ends up in a dim corner booth of an old diner, the kind of place where the coffee is strong and the patrons are even stronger. The air smells of grease and nostalgia, and the vinyl seat creaks under her as she spreads out her notes. She doesn't notice the old man at first, not until he slides into the seat across from her without invitation. His hands are rough, his cap stained with oil, and when he speaks, his voice is a rasp, like wind through dead leaves. "You're digging into Voss," he says, not a question, but a statement. Clara's pulse quickens. This man knows something. The conversation that follows is cryptic, tense. The old mechanic, Roy, doesn't give her answers so much as fragments, pieces of a puzzle she's only beginning to understand. "They say he's still up there," Roy murmurs, his gaze distant, flying forever. And then, before she can press him further, he drops a rusted key on the table between them. "Hangar 7B, he says. "Don't go at night." The warning lingers in the air long after he's gone, a whisper of danger that sends a shiver down Clara's spine. But it's the key that holds her attention, cold and heavy in her palm, a tangible link to the past, to him. This scene is more than just exposition. It's the moment Clara's curiosity becomes an obsession. The newsroom, with its cynical dismissal of the unknown, represents everything she's fighting against. The world's refusal to believe in anything beyond the mundane. The diner, with its shadowed corners and hushed secrets, is where the real story begins. And Roy? He's the first thread in a tapestry of mystery, a man who knows more than he's saying, whose warning suggests that some truths are better left unspoken. But Clara won't listen. She can't. Because now she's caught the scent of something inexplicable, something alive in the spaces between fact and legend. And as the scene fades, the key burning a hole in her pocket, we know she's already decided to go to Hangar 7B. The air traffic control tower is a relic of the past, a squat, concrete building on the edge of the airport where the fluorescent lights hum like tired ghosts. Clara Reeves steps inside, her breath fogging slightly in the chilled air. The walls are lined with outdated radar screens and yellowed maps dotted with coffee stains. This is where retired controller Frank Weller has agreed to meet her, a man whose name kept appearing in the margins of her research, always accompanied by hushed tones and vague warnings. Frank is in his 70s now, his hands trembling slightly as he pours 2 cups of weak coffee. He moves like a man who has spent too many nights staring at flickering screens, searching for blips that shouldn't exist. When Clara mentions Voss, his fingers tighten around his mug. I wasn't supposed to talk about it, he mutters, but I'm too old for their threats now. He leads her to a back room where a filing cabinet wheezes open to reveal a folder marked with a single faded red stripe, the kind used for classified material. Inside is a radar printout from 1972, decades after Voss vanished. The grainy image shows a lone aircraft moving against the wind, cutting through storm clouds with impossible precision. That's him, Frank says, voice low. No transponder, no call sign, just there. Clara's pulse quickens. You tracked him? Frank's laugh is hollow. Not just me. Every controller worth their salt has seen it at least once. You report it, they pull you aside, tell you it was a glitch. But we knew. He slides a photograph across the table, a Polaroid taken from the tower window. The sky is streaked with sunset, and there, just barely visible, is the silhouette of a silver plane, its wings catching the last light. It's too crisp, too real to be a trick of the lens. Why would they cover it up? Clara whispers. Frank's eyes flick to the door, as if expecting someone to burst in. Because he wasn't just lost, he says. He was wrong. The way he moved, no turns, no adjustments, like the sky was holding him in place. He leans closer, the smell of old tobacco and regret clinging to him. You want to know the real story? Find the ones who flew near him. If they'll talk? Clara leaves the tower with the photograph tucked into her coat, the weight of it pressing against her ribs. That night, in the glow of her apartment's desk lamp, she stares at the image until her vision blurs. The plane seems to shift in the dim light, its outline wavering like a mirage. And then, just for a second, she swears the shadow in the cockpit turns its head. The first sighting isn't just a scene. It's the moment the legend becomes real. The radar printout and photograph are the first hard evidence Clara uncovers, the first cracks in the official story. Frank's fear is palpable, not just of the thing in the sky, but of the people who've spent decades silencing those who've seen it. The implication is clear. Voss's plane isn't just a ghost story. It's something the authorities have known about all along. And now, so does Clara. The question is no longer, is this real? It's what happens next.
The attic of the old Voss family home smells of dust and dried ink, the kind of air that hasn't been stirred in decades. Clara Reeves runs her fingers along the spine of the leather-bound journal, its surface cracked with age. The granddaughter, Eleanor Voss, a woman in her 60s with her grandfather's sharp cheekbones and guarded eyes, had been reluctant to hand it over. He never came back, she'd said, voice tight. But his words did. The journal's pages are brittle under Clara's touch, filled with Elias Voss's tight, precise handwriting, flight logs, coordinates, sketches of cloud formations that look more like living things than weather patterns. But as she flips deeper, the entries change. The handwriting grows jagged, the ink splattered in places, as if written in haste or desperation. October 14th, 1947. The light is wrong. The stars don't move where they should. I've circled the same patch of sky for 3 hours, but the fuel gauge hasn't dropped an inch. Clara's breath catches. She turns another page. November 2nd, 1947. They're speaking to me now, not through the radio, in my head. They say the plane isn't a machine anymore. It's a bridge. The entries grow more fragmented, the dates skipping weeks, then months. Voss writes of skies that unfold like paper, of a voice that calls him the keeper of the threshold. And then the final entry, scrawled across an entire page in shaky capitals. If I land, it ends. If I keep flying, I stay in the sky forever. The words thrum in Clara's skull. She looks up to ask Eleanor what it means, but the woman is gone. The attic door, which Clara swears was open a moment ago, now stands shut. And from somewhere outside, high above the house, comes the faint, unmistakable drone of an engine. The aviator's journal isn't just a clue, it's a haunting. The journal's descent from clinical logs to feverish ravings mirrors Clara's own journey from skeptic to believer. Voss's words suggest something far darker than a simple disappearance, a man who didn't just vanish into the sky, but was claimed by it. The final entry reads less like a choice and more like a warning, one that Clara, chasing the story deeper, might now be forced to confront herself. And as that engine sound lingers in the air, one truth becomes terrifyingly clear. Elias Voss isn't just a ghost. He's waiting for her. The Cessna's single engine sputters to life, its propeller slicing through the thick night air as Clara Reeves tightens her grip on the yoke. The control panel casts an eerie green glow across her determined face, illuminating the creases of worry that have deepened since she first read those final desperate words in Voss's journal. The airfield is deserted at this hour, just as Roy had warned, but Clara has long since stopped heeding warnings. She checks her coordinates one last time. The same patch of sky where 3 separate pilots reported seeing something in the past decade. The radio crackles with static, the only sound besides the drone of the engine and the hammering of her own heart. The stars above are sharp and cold, indifferent witnesses to what she's about to attempt. At first, there's nothing, just endless blackness and the occasional wisp of cloud. Then, a flicker of movement at the edge of her vision. Clara's breath catches in her throat as she banks left, chasing the shadow. For a moment, she thinks it might just be her eyes playing tricks. But then the radio erupts with a burst of noise. Not static this time, but a voice, distant yet unmistakable. "This is Captain Voss. Do you read me?" The voice is wrong. Not just old-fashioned in its cadence, but stretched, as if each word is being pulled across decades. Clara fumbles for the radio, her fingers numb with adrenaline. Captain Voss? Elias Voss? Her own voice sounds small against the vastness of the night. No response, just silence. Then, a shape materializes off her starboard wing. The silver albatross glides beside her, so close she can see the rivets in its fuselage. It shouldn't be possible. The plane looks pristine, untouched by time, its silver skin gleaming under the moonlight. Through the cockpit glass, Clara can just make out a figure at the controls. He isn't looking at her. His gaze is fixed straight ahead, his hands steady on the yoke. Clara's stomach drops as realization hits. He's not flying the plane. The plane is flying him. She reaches for the radio again, but before she can speak, the albatross banks sharply upward, impossibly fast, impossibly smooth, and vanishes into the cloud cover. The radio crackles one last time. "You shouldn't have come up here." Then silence. True silence. Even her own engine seems to have stopped. For one terrifying moment, Clara's Cessna hangs motionless in the air, as if the sky itself is holding its breath. Then gravity remembers its duty, and the world rushes back in a cacophony of sound and motion as her plane drops 50 feet before she regains control. By the time she lands, her hands won't stop shaking. The tower reports no other aircraft in the area. The radar shows nothing. But as Clara walks away from the airfield just before dawn, she hears it one last time, the faint, fading hum of propellers in the distance. And she knows with chilling certainty that Elias Voss wasn't warning her about the dangers of the sky. He was warning her about himself. The midnight flight is where the legend becomes inescapably real, not just a story to be uncovered, but a presence that interacts. The scene plays with the primal fear of being alone in vast empty spaces where the rules of reality no longer apply. Clara's encounter isn't just a sighting, it's a confrontation with something that defies explanation, something that knows her. And the most terrifying realization of all? This wasn't an accident. Voss wanted her to see him. The question now isn't whether the phantom aviator exists. It's why, after all these years, he's chosen to reveal himself to her. And what he'll do now that she's crossed into his world. The abandoned military research facility smells of rust and mildew, its concrete walls sweating in the damp underground air. Clara Reeves's flashlight beam cuts through the darkness, illuminating filing cabinets marked with faded classified stamps. The trail of Elias Voss's disappearance has led her here, to a place that officially doesn't exist, where the truth has been rotting in manila folders for 70 years. The documents crumble at her touch. Project Icarus, Operation Skybound. Phrases leap out at her: temporal displacement, gravitational anomalies, non-linear flight corridors. Then she finds it, a photograph that stops her heart. Voss stands in this very bunker, younger than in any picture she's seen, strapped into some grotesque harness of wires and metal plates. Scientists surround him, their faces blurred by the camera's motion. Except one. Dr. Emil Roth, his eyes bright with something between triumph and terror, holds a device that looks disturbingly like the cockpit instruments of the Silver Albatross. The final report is stamped, terminated in angry red ink. Subject Voss achieved phase transition at 35,000 feet. Vessel and pilot entered what we are calling the forever sky, a theoretical space where time does not progress linearly. Attempts at recovery failed. Recommend full project shutdown and disinformation campaign. Clara's hands tremble. This isn't just about a missing pilot. Voss wasn't lost. He was sent, a volunteer or a victim. The documents don't say. Then she finds the addendum, handwritten on yellowed paper. We were wrong. The forever sky isn't empty. Something there recognized the plane, recognized him. It's been calling to others since. We hear the pilot's reports, the radar ghosts. Roth says we created a door that shouldn't exist. God help us. I think something is trying to come through. The signature is illegible. The date is 3 days before the author's apparent suicide. As Clara staggers back into the night, the documents stuffed in her bag, the wind carries an impossible sound, the distant hum of propellers. She looks up, half expecting to see the albatross, but the sky is empty, for now. The truth revealed is where Clara learns the most horrifying lesson. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The military's experiments didn't just strand Voss between worlds, they punctured something fundamental about reality itself. And the documents suggest a terrifying possibility. Voss isn't haunting the skies by choice. He might be keeping something else from getting through. The final scene, with Clara standing alone under that vast, watching sky, hammers home the true horror. This isn't just about solving a mystery anymore. It's about whether she'll have to choose between exposing the truth or becoming part of the cover-up. The radio studio is too bright, too sterile for what Clara is about to do. The sound engineer gives her a thumbs up through the glass, unaware that the words she's about to broadcast aren't just a story, they're an invitation. Her hands hover over Voss's journal, open to that final damning page. The city sleeps beyond the studio walls, its lights flickering like distant stars, unaware that its sky is about to wake. She takes a breath, goes live, and reads Elias Voss's last words to the world. Static crackles across the airwaves as she speaks, the studio lights dimming, though no one touches the switches. The engineer frowns at his board. None of his dials should be reacting this way. Clara keeps reading, her voice growing stronger, because she realizes now this was never just about uncovering the truth. It was about bearing witness. When she finishes, the silence that follows is absolute. Then, a sound no modern microphone should be able to pick up. The unmistakable roar of a World War II-era propeller engine swelling from the radio speakers, from the walls, from the very air itself. The studio windows rattle as something passes overhead, close enough to touch. Out on the street, people are pointing upward, their phones capturing nothing but static as the silver albatross materializes above the city, not as a ghost, but as something more real than reality, its silver wings catching the dawn light in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. Clara runs outside in time to see it bank sharply, impossibly, over the skyline. For one breathtaking moment, the plane hangs suspended, a perfect, impossible silhouette against the rising sun. Then the radio in her pocket crackles to life one last time. Thank you. Voss's voice is clear now, at peace. I can land now. The albatross doesn't vanish in a puff of smoke or streak away into the clouds. It unfolds, wings stretching into something luminous and vast, before dissolving into a shower of light that rains gently over the city. People gasp as the sparks touch their skin, leaving no marks, only the faint scent of ozone and old leather. By the time the authorities arrive, there's nothing left to investigate. No wreckage, no evidence. Just Clara, standing in the middle of the street with a silent radio in her hands, and the unshakable feeling that the sky is finally, blessedly empty. The final transmission isn't an ending, it's a release. Clara's broadcast didn't just expose the truth, it completed a circuit begun 70 years ago. In giving Voss's words back to the sky, she didn't solve the mystery, she set it free. The haunting final image of light falling like rain suggests that some legends don't fade away. They transform. And as the first normal dawn in decades breaks over the city, one question lingers. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.